do I shut it down?
You should just be able to close it.
Just close it, and it's gonna
Or, oh, so you
end,
hit
end stream.
You got it.
Cool. All right. Okay. So we're streaming now.
Good to go.
It's election day, and everybody's going to the polls, or they've sent in their absentee ballots, and their uh, absentee ballot or their, mail-in ballot, whatever you call it. That's a farce. That's ridiculous. There's absolutely no reason that anybody should have to or should be sending a ballot by mail unless they're legitimately uh, prohibited from going. Like it's like the requirements on the absentee ballot say. You either in a hospital, you're 60 years plus, you can't get to the polls without the assistance of another, or any of the other requirements. Just because you're freaking afraid of getting the coronavirus ain't or isn't any legitimate excuse for not being at the polls. They could have opened the polls yesterday and let people come in a stream when they could, and just mark them off a list when they when they came in, like they've done many another time that I have voted. These allowances are ridiculous. This COVID has made a farce of this election. It's made a farce of this entire country. When the thing hit, the economy went in the crapper, and they scrambled to get money for those affected by the coronavirus. The problem was the Congress did not do enough. They harangued Donald Trump for Nancy Pelosi claims he doesn't understand what's going on. Well, I think he understands it far better than those undemocratic Democrats would like us to believe. They have spent 4 years haranguing him for everything they could think of. They started with his voter fraud. They tried to prove that he had colluded with Russia, that Robert Mueller, he used to be the Attorney General back in the day before he left and became a special counsel. And if he could have nailed down the president on something, he would have. He went after others for things not connected to the alleged collusion with Russia. He got them for lying to Congress, which is ridiculous. These are things they should not have been charged with, not by him, not by anyone, except the appropriate authorities, if it was appropriate. Here we have old lying Biden, like lying Hillary. Man, Biden and Hillary are two peas in a pod. Along with Obama, their boy Obama, he signed into law a few anti-gun pieces of legislation, which that is an act of treason. As I said before, the bill in 1787, in 17 when they started that what we call the Constitutional Convention. They wanted to create a government run by the people. And since its inception, it has been anything but run by the people. It has been run by the wealthy, by big corporations, by, and back to what I was saying about the wealthy landowners, anyone with considered the elite, they put pressure on the Congress to bend their way, not the way of the people. Man, they put it when George Washington was, I don't know how he was, but he was elected the first president. He authorized a tax on whiskey. And when they rebelled against it, he sent out the army. That was called the militia. And he led it. So he caused the practice of moonshining, which is where they literally made whiskey in moonlight. They did it at night outside the boundaries of the colonial, outside of the former boundaries of the former colonies, and thereby outside federal authorities. Oh, man. Yeah, this whole country is a farce. They question they question the legitimacy of Thomas Jefferson's purchasing the Louisiana Territory from France for, it was like $7 or $8 million, a few pennies upon the acre. He paid pennies for each acre of land that the French sold him. Man, they ripped themselves off. They should have asked for at least a dollar or $2 per acre. And we got the whole, they credit him with doubling the size of the nation. Got everything from what is now Louisiana all the way up to the states that are now Idaho, Montana, Minnesota, and those in a narrow arc back down toward Louisiana, minus Texas. They questioned that. They questioned it, but they accepted it. And then later on, people said, well, I don't even know if he had the authority to do that. Well, apparently he did. Thomas Jefferson wrote it, and he was a smart guy. You watch that show, the Pawn Stars. He can't even get the right president. Rick Harrison has made a statement twice, I believe, that the War of 1812 happened under Monroe. It wasn't Monroe, it was Madison. James Madison was the fourth president of the United States. And he was one of the last to inherit the former colonies. He was like the from Washington through, I think it was John Quincy Adams. They wore the three-cornered hats and the pants that end where the legs ended at your calf, like you see in the pictures. So 6 of them did that, and then the rest were all 19th century. The rest of them were men who had been born toward the end of the 18th and toward the end of the 18th and the beginning of the 19th century. So he was part of the end of an era. James Madison was also the one who wrote the Bill of Rights, because he had written the Virginia state, Virginia's Bill of Rights. Back to Joe Biden. That guy is an idiot. Many times they found showing him having lapses in judgment. He couldn't even finish he tried to recite something from the Declaration of Independence. He couldn't even do that. He couldn't tell. You could ask him about an amendment. I don't think he could tell you what that was. I don't think anyone can accurately, or apologize for that. I don't think anybody can accurately explain any of the 10 amendments. I could, with the exception of 2, and I'd be fuzzy on their place in the Bill of Rights. Yeah, as I was saying about Biden. The man's an idiot. He, in 1987 on C-SPAN, he was arguing with somebody. He told that man that he would put Biden said to a man who was off camera that he would put his IQ up against that man's. He said, I'll be willing to put my IQ up against yours, and I'd have a higher one. To that effect. To the effect that he had a higher IQ than the man he was talking to. He claimed at the time that he had graduated from college at the top of his class and that he had graduated with 3 degrees. Now, that's on C-SPAN. That's the live feed from the House, from the floor of the U.S. Congress. Later, C-SPAN showed that they had found that he had lied. He had not graduated from college with 3 degrees. He had not graduated from college in 3 degrees. He had barely graduated. He graduated with 1, barely at that. And he had not graduated at the top of his class. He had graduated at the bottom. And so questionable about his IQ. If he lied about where he graduated, what part of his class he graduated at, and how many degrees he graduated with, what else did he lie about? I know this. He's if he said he did anything good for the country, he's a liar. He has voted on legislation that violates the Second Amendment. He has probably voted on legislation that violates other amendments, like with that Patriot Act. Oh man, that is ridiculous. They use it on television a lot in criminal actions to force doctors and attorneys to violate their attorney-client privilege. Man, that is ridiculous. Makes you wonder what privileges we actually have in this country anymore, or what rights. The Bill of Rights is there to protect the American people from from abuses of government power. The founders did not want a government like the one they had just separated themselves from. They wanted a government of the people, as Nicolas Cage said in that film National Treasure, when he was talking to the FBI agent. He said that when the FBI agent said that the Templar said to him, the Templars felt that the treasure was too big for any one person, even a king, to have. His character, Benjamin Gates, said that the founders had the same idea about government, at which the agent said, give it to the people, which they did. That is why it is written the way it is written. It puts the people in control of the destiny of their nation. Not a king, not some nobility. Not somebody who's going to be here for life. Because, as we all know, there's a phrase that says, familiarity breeds contempt. When you do something for so long that you feel comfortable doing it, you cease to follow the directions. Yeah, if you have a set of directions that you're supposed to follow when doing something, and you get so comfortable performing that task, you feel you don't need those directions, then it is inevitable that you can or you will make a mistake. Hence, when you are someone who is supposed to be serving the people, and you spend so much time in there doing that you feel you don't have to listen to those who put you there, those who elected you to be their servant, to serve their will, then you become their enemy. You become contemptuous of them, and you are not a advocate for them. You are a detriment to them. We have so many laws on our books that are redundant. The NRA pointed out that if we applied all of the laws that apply to a certain situation, you can take many laws that apply, every law applies to the same situation, and the person that violated that one part of it could end up spending 1,000 years in prison. Now that right there is ridiculous, because you're not going to spend any more time in prison than your natural life. So having so many laws on the books that would put a person in prison for 1,000 years is ridiculous. We need to have an independent council look over all of these laws and eliminate them down to one law for each so-called crime. They don't call it kidnapping, they call it unlawful. If you hold someone against their will, they call it unlawful imprisonment. Kidnapping, they'll call it unlawful imprisonment or false arrest, or so many other ways of calling it, that it just adds more time. That's wrong. If it's kidnapping, it's kidnapping. Kidnapping doesn't matter whether it's where you've taken them from one place to another, or if you hold them in one place against their will, or however you want to phrase it. It's holding a person against their will. They can't leave. They can't do anything.
Hello, Patrick? Oh, are you on your video?
It doesn't matter what it is. If you're holding someone against their will, you don't let them leave, and they can't do anything without your permission, that's kidnapping. End of, just the end of it. Oh, man. I probably got off on a tangent. Yeah. Joe Biden spent nearly 60 years in government. That is too much time for anybody to have spent in there. He spent 8 years as Obama's vice president. He spent more than 40 or over 50 years lying to those he was supposed to be serving, just so they would send him to the Senate send him back to the Senate. The Senate is a 6-year term. During that time, Each term is 6 years. During that, 1/3 of the Senate is elected or comes up for election every 2 years. Okay, the House of Representatives is supposed to represent the people. The Senate represents the state. And I don't know what that means because the people are the state. So if you are electing someone to go to Congress to represent you, why should you have to do it twice? Biden, like his running mate Kamala Harris, they have voted many times on anti-gun legislation. Joe Biden knew then what was wrong with this nation. That he could have fixed it then, could have proposed legislation, but do we know if he did? No, because it wasn't publicized. Biden now claims that he's going to give retired people and senior citizens, anyone on Social Security, an increase in their benefits of $1,300 each year. He can't. As I probably said before, Social Security is it's a contract with the government, a contract the government made with the people. The Social Security Administration takes in the tax money that is taken out of our paychecks each pay period and is put into a fund that is set up to so that we can is set up to take care of us when we retire, when we reach retirement age or are no longer able to work. When we are no longer able to work, then we can draw benefits, a monthly benefit from that fund. So if the government could increase our benefits beyond a cost of living allowance, as they call it, then they could also eliminate it, but they can't. I've heard it said twice that Congress has eliminated or has embezzled something like $3 trillion from the Social Security fund. They need to put it back, because if it's not as it's going, it's said that as it is going now, the Social Security fund will be out of money by the year 2035, either 2026 or 2035. Now, if that happens, that is the fault of Congress. They have had their fingers in your pockets for far too long. They issued the 16th Amendment without sending it to the states for approval. The Constitution says that Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes from whatever source deemed necessary. That's in the body of the Constitution itself. Then Congress issues the 16th Amendment, which says the same thing. It says income tax. Says they can tax your income from wherever it comes from. Well, it's already in the Constitution, so 16th Amendment is unconstitutional. Also, the 18th Amendment was unconstitutional. Congress had no authority to ban alcohol in this nation. They should have looked at the past to see how that would have gone. It damn near bankrupted our country as when they did it. They wrote it. It was incompetently written, and it shows how corrupt that government was. It was pressured by this organization called the Women's Catholic Temperance Union. So it was run by women. And they claimed, without supporting documentation, that men were getting drunk, coming home, and beating their wives. And to get it pushed, also get it pushed through, and to get the 19th and 20th Amendments pushed through, they threatened Congress, saying that no woman would perform her domestic duties if Congress did not pass them. They were not. I challenged anyone to show if those amendments went to the states for ratification, because the Constitution requires a 2/3 majority vote of Congress to approve an amendment. Further, it requires that amendment be sent to the states for a 3/4 majority, which means that you would need, 3/4 of it. 10% of the states would be 5, and multiply that by 10, 30, 66, 7, 70%, 75%, that would be 5, would be 35, would be 70%. And then like 2.5 states would be 37, say 38 states would have to approve a proposed amendment to make it part of the Constitution. I don't think that would have happened if it had been done appropriately. It's known that the 22nd Amendment, or was it the 25th? that limited the number of terms that any person can serve consecutively as president to two, that was automatically approved when it was proposed in Congress. And that was because of the unprecedented 4 terms that Roosevelt was elected to. The last 2, the third and the fourth terms, he didn't even run. He was just automatically elected. His name was put up. He didn't campaign, didn't do anything. His name was put on the ballot, and the people voted for him, and he was elected. And been done before. As I've stated previously, the Bill of Rights it's a misnomer. They are not rights. These are in place to prevent government tyranny, protect the American people from government tyranny, and to prevent the abuse of governmental authority. We need to immediately take a look at certain things that are going on. We need to look at the Constitution, where it talks about the U.S. Supreme Court. Find out if it actually says that a term of service on the Supreme Court is in fact, find out if it is in fact a life term, a lifetime appointment. If it is, it needs to be stopped. As I stated before, familiarity breeds contempt. When they feel they are safe in that position, they also feel that they have no obligation to serve the American people fairly or appropriately. If they felt that, they would not have issued all of these rulings in favor of women against men, like Roe v. Wade. Doesn't matter that that the woman is carrying the child. That is what she is created for. Remember and I'm not trying to be religious, because I'm not, but you remember the Bible, it says that God created woman from man. He created her for the purpose of bearing the offspring, children, for keeping a home. She's to be his companion to a man. And now that's, now you got them where they're basically telling us that being male is wrong. That's ridiculous. People are correct that this is a historic moment. The entire House of Representatives is up for election or re-election. We need to get the Democrats out. Anyone in there, if you look at the NRA, the 14 members of the U.S. House of Representatives that serve Michigan, they all have like F ratings, which means they are openly hostile to the American people. They believe that American people have no right to defend themselves against those who would do them harm, who would invade their homes, threaten their safety, threaten the safety of their loved ones, the safety and security of their property and possessions. It's ridiculous. The American people need to put their foot down and show these idiots who is boss. And that's the American people. They need to show them who's boss and re-elect Donald Trump. Donald Trump has done everything or tried to do everything he said he would do. He has gotten money to build that wall at the border, which we desperately need. That area has been wide open for centuries. The last 2 centuries since the Constitution was enacted. They claim that putting a wall there will not cut down on the number of number of people coming across the border illegally. They say that most of them are coming through the legitimate border crossing sites, and they're coming in from other nations. They're coming in on airplanes. They're wrong. When they were showing how many on CNN, they were showing how many people the Border Patrol, the Customs and Border Protection, CBP, or the Border Patrol was grabbing. They failed to mention one thing: how many people had come across that they did not get. It doesn't matter how many people they grab. What matters is how many people they don't get. And that is what cannot be quantified. They have shown where that fencing that's already up is a joke. That corrugated metal. They showed on the news video of a drug smuggler lifting up a section like you'd lift up a garage door. They propped it up with a piece of wood and then pushed the drug bundles through that hole all the way. And when they came through, they lowered the sheet of corrugated metal, again, like you'd lower a garage door. and then they went about their business. If we have a legitimate wall there that is high enough to make it impractical, sufficiently impractical to even attempt to, call it prosecute, to get over it, then smugglers will stop bringing drugs through that area. It will legitimately shut down that avenue. The Customs and Border Protection and the Drug Enforcement Administration has been successful, so they say, in finding the tunnels that are dug underground. They're dug through from Mexico into San Diego, into California, into like Arizona and other states. Well, they say they found those and they've shut them down. What we need to do is we need to dig a trench in there where on the border on our side.
4 sugars and 1 cream or 2 creams?
2.
2 creams? Okay, are you gonna eat?
Yeah. Yeah, and need to dig a trench in there and put the wall down in there, make it wide in stone, and then build it up above some 30 or 50 feet high and make it wide enough that make it wide like they have. Put it on the bed.
Okay.
Did I get extra ambrosia?
No, you didn't.
I asked her to call down and get me some.
I'll probably have some left over.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The wall that Hadrian, just to sidetrack here for a little bit, in 122, 117 AD, the new emperor of the Roman Empire was a man from what is now the nation of Spain. He took over and he did a tour of the empire. When he got to Britannia, he found that the Roman troops there were not tending to the business of the empire. So he set them on a construction project. He had them construct a wall to cross from coast to coast across the northern border of Britannia. That border is what now would connect Britain and Scotland. He put it across there. It said that in 5 years, they constructed a wall 73 miles long and 15 feet high. 15 feet doesn't sound like a lot until you're standing right there looking at it. Actually, 15 feet is the height of 2 6-foot tall adult males and a 3-foot tall child. So you put, or you could go 5 yardsticks tall. You put 5 yardsticks and put them on the wall and put them end to end, and that's 15 feet because the yardstick is 3 feet. So it was 15 feet tall and 10 feet wide, and they could it allowed them to position troops at any point in that on that wall within minutes. Now, and they employed geographical obstacles, means they used the terrain as obstacles. What was there? The dips and the valleys and the hills used the way the terrain was built to hinder approaching enemies. And with the wall that 15 feet high, it allowed them to see for long distances away. They could see approaching danger and could thusly position themselves where it was needed. If we did such a thing with a wall like that, but twice the height and maybe as deep, if not deeper, then we could shut down the smuggling of drugs into the nation and shut down the smuggling of people in here by the coyotes, these human traffickers, and thereby put a severe crimp into the cartel's businesses. It is there are those who claim that doing so would be doing so is racist, that it is illegal, and there are other claims that they have made, whether they are, I don't think they're right. But that's for the American voters to decide. We do need that wall. We need it very much. People, I've heard many people complaining about how they've lost their jobs to illegals who've come over the people who've come over here illegally, they get hired for far less than what U.S. worker will work for, and I understand it. It's not right that a person that you can you a business for a business to hire someone who's come here illegally so they can pay them just a few dollars an hour to do a job that they should legitimately pay a legitimate worker a legitimate wage for. That's not right. They're committing a crime. They're committing a crime by hiring the the person is coming here illegally. They're committing a crime by denying the legitimate worker a job. They are committing a crime by thumbing their nose at our immigration laws, and they are also committing a crime by not contacting the immigration service that the person is here illegally. These so-called sanctuary cities are committing treason. Treason is labeled as to wage war against the United States and to give aid and comfort to our enemies. Now, I would say that anyone who comes to this nation, who crosses our border in violation of our immigration laws, is an enemy. Doesn't matter why they came here. Maybe there were no jobs back there. It doesn't matter. If they don't come here legally, do not come here in adherence to our immigration laws, then they're an enemy. They need to be sent back immediately. We need to increase the number of immigration courts that we have. According to the Adam Ruins Everything television show on True TV, there is like one immigration court in each state. That needs to be increased to, in the bigger states, it needs to be maybe 10. California should be increased to 10. In Texas, 10. Alaska, you can stick with, I don't know. I wouldn't touch Alaska. But these other states that, like Florida, they should have 10. Every other state, a small state like Connecticut, Rhode Island, they can get by with maybe 2. Other states should have 4 or 5, whatever is necessary to handle the whatever number of illegal I wouldn't call them immigrants. Just call them illegals. The number of illegals that they should have a sufficient number of immigration courts to handle them. So, as for the amendments, we have a lot of commissions in here that are unconstitutional. The FCC, that's unconstitutional. Federal Communications Commission, because you see a lot on these television series that gets through that will be bleeped out on broadcast television like ABC, CBS, Fox, NBC. Other channels, they get it through, but those channels, they don't. It gets bleeped out. That's ridiculous. As I stated, the Bill of Rights aren't rights. They're law of the land for these so-called public servants to ignore them once they get into office. When they take an oath of office, they raise their right hand, and after they say I and then their name, the words are do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I'm about to enter. But first is say to protect, support, and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter, that I will support and enforce the laws of the nation that I serve, so help me God. You know, that might not be verbatim, but that's the gist of it. Now, when they get into office, once they assume their office, that all goes out the window. Yeah, that all goes out the window. They start putting their name on these bills, and it's all, oh, we need this person's support to get this bill through. We need this person's support to get that bill through. Bull. If you got a bill that supports the Bill of Rights, make it known that if they don't support that bill, if you're a member of the House of Representatives and you want to get a bill through that supports all of these amendments or one of those amendments of the Bill of Rights, and nobody else will support it, you make it known that either they support it or you are going to make it known to their constituents that they voted, that you came up with this bill and that they voted against it. and let them answer to their constituents. And then watch them. Supposedly the House has the right to decide who can serve in it. I think that's bull. They don't have the right to say who can serve in it. It's like saying what chicken can be in a chicken coop. It's ridiculous. The reason when you look at these amendments, it says, First Amendment says, Congress shall make no laws respecting an establishment of religion, and yet you constantly got the government declaring that a certain this thing or that thing is now a cult because it doesn't fit with their what they doesn't meet with their approval. You don't need government approval. A church is a church. That's why we have this Scientology. It calls itself a church. It's a cult. That's all it is. When you can be deprived of your child simply because those in that church, quote unquote, claim that the child is this thing or that thing, and it gets to be in the so-called upper echelons. That's wrong. That is a cult. A lot of people have stated such. When it says that you cannot, it says respecting an establishment of religion, nor prohibiting the free exercise thereof. And that's where these groups get over. Says, nor prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Then it goes on to say, or abridging the right of free speech, free press. Now, right there, the government screws up because it does inhibit your right of free speech and free press. They claim, free speech does not apply to hate speech or making a threat against someone. It doesn't matter what they think, what the government thinks. It covers everything. The government doesn't have the right to limit your right to free speech just because you get pissed off at somebody. Maybe you say you want them to do the right thing and say either you word it that way. Doesn't matter if you don't like someone because of their religion, unless you directly make an overt threat. And that's not just, saying it. That means actually doing it. Cops many times will say, unless there is an overt, unless they actually do something, we can't do something. That's what the cops will say. They can't do something. Well, now they've got this hate crime statute where they call everything a hate crime just so they can get in there and trample your rights. That's wrong. The government That's treason. The government is trampling your rights. Where it's, now you got YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, a lot of these social media sites jumping on the bandwagon, trampling your rights by shutting things down that they claim are misleading and false and something else. It's just, they're doing it because it doesn't meet with their approval. It's wrong. It's free speech, free press. No one has the right to tell anyone else what they may or may not say. You can say anything you want. It's only when you actually act on it that it goes from protected to unprotected. It's like those people in Minnesota standing in front of their home, holding a weapon, supposedly holding handguns, and they were arrested. The cops claimed that they were terrorizing the so-called protesters out in front of their homes. These people claimed that they were in fear for their lives because of what had been going on. Yet the government, the authorities, claimed that the homeowners were terrorizing the protesters. Now, right there, that's an abuse of authority. That's tyranny. They did not, even if they had pointed those weapons at supposedly saying that what the government said was true. Let's say it was. Not saying it wasn't. Let's say it was. Okay. Hypothetically, say that what was claimed was what happened. Unless, even if, or not unless, but even if they had pointed those handguns or those weapons at the protesters out in front on the street in front of their house, if they had pointed them at them, that is not terrorizing. That is not terrorism. It is not. It is making a statement that saying making a statement by the homeowners saying that if those so-called protesters had entered their property, the homeowners would defend themselves and their property. Just holding it, up to like that, you're not brandishing it, you're just showing them. But when you hold it without firing it, that's making a statement that if you attempt to, come onto my property and damage it or harm me or any other unlawful action, I will defend myself. Though at that time, those so-called protesters, when they were arrested, those so-called protesters had been doing a lot of unlawful stuff. They had been looting, breaking into businesses, breaking into homes, I believe, and looting. So it was very appropriate for the homeowners to be fearful that those so-called protesters might do the same to them. Yeah. Remember Katrina, the sheriff there in that city in New Orleans, got jammed up because he violated the people's right to keep and bear arms by confiscating a lot of people's firearms. And the government told him, you can't do that. And he was forced to give them back. It was like what the British general did when they occupied Charlestown, now Charleston. He asked the people to turn in their firearms so he could see who had what, and that turned into a confiscation. When they asked for them back, he told them, we can't give them back to you yet. You might, made some statement about it. And then shortly thereafter, the British left Charleston because the colonial army was nearby. At that time, the colonists broke into the area where the arms were being held, and they were returned to their rightful owners. You look at the past, and you'll see many times where our rights are violated. How many times have as a person gotten jammed up simply on a verbal accusation with no corroborating evidence, and they spent years in prison because of it before it was found that the accusation was false. I'm reminded of a case from Dateline or American Justice, one of those true crime shows. It was a rape murder. This older woman was, I think, raped and murdered, and a 6-year-old granddaughter was likewise raped, but not murdered. When asked who had done it, or if she had seen the person who did it, she said that the person looked like her uncle. They thought she was referring to her sister's husband. She wasn't. They had no direct evidence to tie that man to what had happened to his wife's grandmother and sister. But the man was subsequently convicted, and he spent years behind bars while his while his wife fought to get him released, fought to prove his innocence. That should never happen. We do not have to prove our innocence. The state has the burden of proof to prove our guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Many times they subvert it and put forth a circumstantial case. Those should never be allowed. If they cannot make the case, then so be it. They need to do more investigation and get the evidence to make the case. Otherwise, give it a rest. The Supreme Court Justice I think it was Warren or Marshall. Some previous Supreme Court justice made the statement that it is better that 100 guilty men go free than one innocent man spend even one day in jail. And that is true. It's not palatable, but it's true. No innocent person should ever spend any time in prison. When people like Joe Biden do things like author legislation that violates our these protections under the Bill of Rights, they need to be barred from ever holding public office. They need to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and upon conviction, they need to spend the rest of their lives in prison. Joe Biden is claiming that under him, he is going to listen to the medical experts. Well, Donald Trump listened to the medical experts, and it was they who were changing their opinions all the time. They were the ones who were contradicting him, not the other way around. If a handle could have been gotten on this virus, why didn't the medical experts or so-called medical experts do that while when it hit? They claim that he was irresponsible in the handling of this virus. As soon as, look at what happened. As soon as it was learned what had happened, he shut down travel to China. He blamed China for letting this virus get out. And he was insulted on it, called a xenophobe. When he didn't immediately impose the Defense Production Act because he said he wanted to, he would if it was necessary, but he was hoping that Americans would rise to the challenge and that they would do what is right. And they did, but it was said it wasn't enough. They needed more. So then he did. He invoked the Defense Production Act, the DPA, calling on all companies, every company, to make all effort to produce sufficient numbers of personal protection equipment that we would need. Produce ventilators, face masks, everything that was needed, testing supplies. Now, if they are not giving, if we are not getting the supplies that we need, if we are not getting the supplies that we need, after that, with the Defense Production Act, then I doubt that there is anything more that can be done. We are working at peak capacity. Many companies you wouldn't think of as for producing masks, they're now producing masks. Find that custom ink that they are making masks. Masks that you can customize or whatever. They make them. And other companies are making them. They have shifted from what they were doing previously to making masks, to making equipment to protect against the virus. So, what else can be done? He says, they claim he's going to listen to medical experts. Well, so does Donald Trump. He is being optimistic. He's trying to keep American spirits up. And they claim he's downplaying it. Well, I, for one, would prefer that he downplay it and say, okay, we're getting closer to the end. Try to keep her spirits up. Try to keep, let the sunshine in, rather than have them pull the shades and darken it, make it any darker than it may or may not be. You want people to lose their minds, to go into a deep depression. How many just commit suicide because there's no end in sight? It's ridiculous. You keep talking about how many people are getting the virus from this place or that place. Now people are saying that they can't be around their family because they're going to get the virus from them. That's not helping. Talk about how they have large family gatherings because supposedly this contact tracing is created a lot of victims of it. That guy who had the large family gathering caused what is it? Supposedly 7 people died how many, I don't know if it was 7, but how many people supposedly died from it? Well, that was a hell of a quick death, don't you think? Does coronavirus kill that quickly? I don't know of any virus that would kill that quickly. Do you? I mean, God, he had it in, what was it? Within a couple of days. Had to be within a couple of days. How many people that were there were dead? Communist News Network claimed they were dead. They claimed how many others were infected. Check your facts. Does it kill that quickly? No. And according to the CDC, only 6% of those they claim, or those that they show as cases, let me backtrack. 6% of those alleged deaths are actually from the coronavirus. Yeah, 6%, people. What do we have now? It's like 230 million, or no, 230,000 deaths, something like that. I don't know. I haven't seen the Communist News Network for a while, so I can't. Can't, you know. I can't see what it is yet. Just a moment. Okay. Let's see. Communist News Network. Nope. Nope. Communist News Network, they've got that election day. Americans head to polls during pandemic for historic election, saying their coverage begins 4 p.m. Eastern time. So they're not going to show any of the pandemic stuff. That's too bad. It says voting underway across U.S. 100 million early votes already cast. Apparently that's 1/3 of our country has already voted. It says total pre-election vote 102,737,152. Or 122, something like that. I don't know. It's ridiculous. Americans on edge cast votes amid pandemic deep divisions. Oh. Yeah, I thought the purpose of the news or news media was to actually report the news, to report what is fact. This guy once, he was on, his name was Horowitz. Might have been something different. I don't remember. He wrote a book called The Unfreedom of the Press. And he he talks about how these so-called reporters how all these reporters will get an idea in their head, and then they will, when they talk to people, they supposedly uh, investigate a story. They'll talk to people, but they don't take the actual what they've actually learned from these folks. They ask questions that are uh, they will take they won't take what is actually said. They will take bits and pieces and stitch it together to get the story they want to present. They put in their bias. Says this is the first presidential election with two candidates who are 70, at least seven, who are over 70 years of age. Biden is 78. So he's damn near dead. And Trump is 74 or 76. He's mid 70s. Yeah. But that's a fact. Biden cannot be trusted. Full pre-election vote: 102,737,522. 1/3 of the country has already cast its vote pre-election. Talk about voter fraud. That's ridiculous. And getting the CNN and the Democratic Party have twisted things around so that people don't know what's true and what's not. CNN, the Communist News Network, claims that they tell the truth. Well, they don't. I remember when the new press secretary held a press conference and that CNN guy asked her a question. Well, she shut him down real quick. She kept calling him on CNN's BS. Oh, they had been incorrect and he didn't like it. Well, that's how it goes. You either get your even Even the vodka people are getting into it. Absolute said your vote could either shake or stir the election. Drink, vote first, drink second. I like that. That was cute. The the best way to tell a lie is to keep telling it until it eventually becomes truth. Everything Joe Biden has said is a lie. I don't care what the Communist News Network said. They aren't telling the truth. I've seen them. When they ask a question and they don't immediately get the answer that they want, they keep talking over the person answering keep asking the question. And when they don't get the answer, they ask it again and again and again. And that's ridiculous. Yeah. I said that Hillary and Biden are criminals. That's true. Hillary and Biden are criminals. Hillary Clinton, when she was Secretary of State, she was responsible for the deaths of those 4 people in Benghazi, Libya. And she wanted to blame it just on the Arab Spring, or the showing of some video. That was wrong. She and Biden and Obama all refused to send in our troops to protect our consulate or embassy in Benghazi when they started. Because of that, 4 people, including the ambassador, were murdered. The building that it was being held in, that was destroyed. That was wrong. Furthermore, Hillary Clinton did something that no public servant should ever do. She used an unsecured computer server or internet server to send classified government documents. Now, anybody else, I believe, would have been convicted of a crime, but not Hillary Clinton. Why? Jeff Sessions, he committed a breach of etiquette by saying that she would not be charged with a crime. It wasn't his decision. That was the Department of Justice. She should have been charged with a crime. She should have been called to explain. And all of these deleted emails, she should have been called to answer for that as well. And everybody that Robert Mueller questioned about certain deleted emails, they had to answer for them. They had to be somehow resurrected or explained. Not Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton also violated the Constitution when she campaigned for the uh, the United States Senate seat for New York in 2000. Her husband was still in the White House. He was still president. As First Lady, she could not. They weren't eligible. They hadn't moved to, they may have already moved to New York, but they weren't residents of New York. The Constitution requires that whether it's a state, whether it's the House of Representatives or the Senate that you want to represent, you must be a resident of that state for 7 years. Before that, you have to establish residency by living there for 6 years. And to be a House of Representatives, you have to be a resident of the district you want to represent for 7 years. Hillary Clinton had not been a resident of the state of New York for 7 years. She didn't move there until after his second inauguration. So 7 years would have been into the presidency of George W. Bush. Would have been in the middle of it. So, please, give me a break. She violated the Constitution, and maybe others. So she committed a crime. God, this is, these people are ridiculous. Oh, and George H.W. Bush, the first guy, he was the head of the CIA, and he was also responsible for the drug problem in here. Another thing, it's claimed they can't they can't do anything about our so-called war on drugs, because if it was to end, then the whole economy would collapse. They claimed that the economy is based or is dependent upon drug arrests, drug seizures, and because when the police arrest people on drugs, the money that they confiscate goes to funding more arrests for drugs, more drug seizures. The same thing with the DEA. And so it's a vicious cycle. It's like that thing with the home loans thing when they were going on, that Freddie Mac and Sally Mae and the other places that were issuing home loans to people who shouldn't have gotten them. They said that they were too big to fail, that if they failed, then everything would go with it. Well, they failed, and the government had to step in and keep it up. You know, they claim that it's too big to fail. Well, we know what happened to. We know what happens when something gets too big to fail. Look at Rome. When Rome ruled most of the known world, things were good. And then the Germanic tribes, yeah, got in it, and they screwed things around, toppled Rome, and the rest of the world turned to crap. It's been 1,000 years after the mid fifth or mid sixth century after it was finally done. After its last fall, when they lost 95% of their people, then the church took over, and it wasn't until the 20th century that we started to get back what we had 1,000 years before. Yes, we had all the things we've got now, we had back then.
Thank you.
What they saying about that rally last night?
I don't know. I haven't looked at it.
Oh, my wife said that she was up early because the dog was awake, and she couldn't calm the dog down. But she was watching the news, and she said that they had over 50,000 people trying to get into the airport. They had to shut the gates. There were so many people trying to get in. People were abandoning their cars like 4 or 5 miles away and walking in, trying to get into the rally last night.
For Trump?
Out at the Kent County Airport. That'll look like second place to me.
I don't think so. And if anybody elected that moron Biden, they deserve what they get, because he is.
Yeah. Well,
I
think the plan is that they put him in there so they could get rid of him, and they could get who they wanted, and they wanted a liberal in there, so they got.
I think so. Yeah. She's even worse than Biden.
People can't see that that's a big snow job on America.
I know they can't.
Yeah.
That's all because of the Democrats and CNN. The other networks, they've been quiet on all the stuff that's been going on, but not CNN. It's been like the puppet of the Democratic Party.
I think the Republicans, if they get control of the House, if they keep control of the Senate at least. Hopefully they get control of the House. I don't know, but I don't think even if they get control of this House, I bet you they won't go after Biden to impeach him, because they won't want Kamala Harris in there.
Well, they'd be screwed, because if they got rid of Biden, Kamala Harris would be in there.
Yeah.
If they got rid of her, you know who would be next? Pelosi. We do not want Pelosi in there.
If we take the House, Pelosi won't be there.
No, Pelosi will be out on her butt.
But, yeah. So I'm hoping we do take the House.
I hope we take everything.
All the way goodbye to her.
Yeah.
You know what? Masks should be mandatory to wear every hour of the day for one person in America. Nancy Pelosi. We don't want to look at that face anymore.
No.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. You probably just heard that, but that's the case. If Biden gets elected, as bad as his memory is, it's not going to be long before he is out. Kamala Harris is going to be in there. And if they find some way to impeach her before she can name a new vice president and the Senate can confirm it, then she would be out. And and Nancy Pelosi would advance to the presidency, which would be total crap for the American people. As I said, remember, most of the people in the I can't say most, but a lot of the people in the Congress are anti-Second Amendment. They think they are unwilling to allow Americans to own firearms, but yet people do because of the NRA. The only way to shut it down permanently is to oust all of these Senate members in the Senate and members in the House of Representatives who have less than an A rating by the National Rifle Association. If you oust them, ask them point blank, do they support, protect, and defend the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution? If they say yes, check them according to their voting record. Ask them how many bills supporting the Second Amendment have they sponsored. That should be quick. It should be a quick answer. If they take time to think about it, they haven't done any. Support for the Second Amendment should be a no-brainer. They should be able to stand up and say, yes, I support the Second Amendment. Because the Second Amendment makes all other amendments possible. Thomas Jefferson said that the purpose for an armed populace is as a deterrent to government tyranny. So here's the thing. If you want tyranny in this nation, elect Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and Nancy Pelosi. If you don't want tyranny in this nation, then you elect Donald Trump. Joe Biden cannot give a person $15,000 credit for buying a house. Joe Biden cannot give an hourly worker an increase of $15,000 a year on their salaries. Joe Biden cannot give you a $7,000 $7,000 credit for child care. Question. According to the Communist News Network here, it says the Democrats have won the popular vote in 6 out of 7 presidential elections. No, they did not. Not in the 6 of the last 7 elections. Let's see. That would be 2016, 2012, 2008, 2004, 2000, 1996, and 1992. Okay, 1992, George H.W. Bush won election. No, he didn't. 1992. All right, 1992, Bill Clinton was elected president of the United States. He took office in 1993. In 1996, he was elected president of the United States. He took office in 1997. 2001, or the 2000 election, George W. Bush was elected. Between him and Al Gore, he was eventually declared president of the United States by a recount in Florida, ordered by the Supreme Court. He was declared president. So you go from 1992, the election of 92, that is, we've only had 4 presidents. Bill Clinton, 93 till 2001. George W. Bush, 2001 till 2008. That's a Democrat and a Republican. 2001 till 2008, another Democrat. That is 3 in the presidency. So I don't know what they're talking about. 6 out of 7 elections. In the last 7 elections, they I just showed you this. 7 elections, takes it all the way back to 1992. 7 presidential elections. And in there you had many smaller elections, like for House, for Senate, etc. But that shows you that CNN is wrong. Now they're doing this thing about the campaigns that changed history. Oh yeah, that was the 1949. No, the the 1948 election. We were showing that 1948 election. The newspapers got so happy that they got they were so sure that Dewey had defeated Truman that they published early, but turned out they were wrong. Truman defeated Dewey in the election, and he served 1 term of his own and then was succeeded by Dwight Eisenhower. Man, Truman was an idiot, but that's irrelevant. Man. People are not smart. They don't think. You know, they're sheep. They aren't smart when it comes to politics. We claim that this is United States of America. It's not united. When we have so many factions in here, it's a wonder that anything can get done. It's ridiculous. You have the evangelicals. You have the labor unions. You have those who are 18 to 48. You have the senior citizens. You have all these other groups that, as I've said before, it just is ridiculous. People do not understand that those who serve us cannot please everybody at the same time. You can't. You can please some of the people all of the time, and you can please all of the people some of the time, but you cannot please all of the people all of the time. Freaking nose itches. But so I don't know whether what the dog. I don't know what kind of a job these people in Congress are doing about listening to their constituents. I've heard it said that that they're going to listen to the person or to those who have donated millions of dollars to a campaign more than they will to someone who's only donated a few hundred or a few thousand. It's like, and take this, a legislator has a call. They have two calls. And it's the question is asked, which call is you think they're going to answer more or answer faster? Call from a person who donated $5,000 to their campaign, or a call from someone who donated $5 million. Well, it's an easy answer. They're going to answer the call from the person who donated $5 million. Joe Biden is not going to do anything for this country, even not even what he said he would do, because he can't. Not only that, he won't. He knows he won't, because he had decades in Congress to do it. And he had 8 years as vice president to bring it before, Obama, get him to do it. But he wouldn't, because he doesn't want to. He's not going to close the loopholes in the tax code and make these millionaires and billionaires pay their fair share. If he did that, someone who's got 20 billion, if they're bringing in 3 billion a year, they're not going to pay, 39 or 40% in income tax. You know what 40% of 3 billion is? 10% of 3 billion is 300 million. So 40% of that is 1.2 billion. Right there, they're paying damn near half of what they would get, or what they get each year. On top of that, they would have their state's income tax. Whatever state they lived in, they would have to pay that income tax. And if there was a county tax and a city tax, holy crap. Now that 3 billion is down to probably, with the 40%, they were looking at $1.6 million, $1.6 billion, only having that to live on. Heavens to Murgatroyd. Then you take in the county tax, or the state tax, county tax, and the city tax. Now you're down to less than probably 1.5 billion. Still a good hunk of change, but not for those bastards. Shit, no. They want to hold on to everything. That's why they're putting money in these offshore accounts, these so-called tax-free zones. For those in Michigan, here's a little knowledge for you. When the Michigan's Lottery Commission issued these tickets that said tax-free, they lied to you. On the back, it says tax-free only applies to the amount remaining after you pay the tax on it. So they lied. They committed a crime. You have the right to sue them. I hate politics. But what I hate is someone getting into politics claiming that they are going to do a lot of good for this nation, for the people, knowing full well that they can't do it because those idiots already in there won't let them. You can't claim that you're going to close the loopholes in tax code, close the loopholes for the rich, for the wealthy, and for big corporations, make them pay their fair share without knowing that they're going to send jobs overseas. You can't claim that you're going to bring jobs back to the United States because you know they won't. Paying taxes like that, 40% off the top, they're not going to do it. That's why they left in the first place with your free trade agreement. No, they want to send the jobs over to nations like India and Pakistan, elsewhere, where in their economy they can pay the equivalent of like 2.5 of our dollars per hour to make something that they would then send over here and sell it for $150 per. $150 for a pair of shoes that cost you $2.50 per hour to make. That's a hell of a good turnover. Bloody ridiculous, I tell you. What needs to happen? Well, I could tell you what needs to happen, but I know it wouldn't. I doubt it would ever happen. Unless Joe Biden knows he's never going to make it happen. Joe Biden knows that if he did that, these corporations would go overseas, go across the ponds to nations that would, where their taxes are less than they are here. Yep. What?
I'm not going to be on your show, am I?
I doubt it. Not unless you step in front of the camera.
Well, I'm not gonna do that. I just told you I need me a shout out. 97.5.
And I'm just getting my temperature and my blood oxygen level taken here by
97.
Amber and Kathy, two of the aides here at the Grand Rapids Home for Veterans. And she has chuckled as she walked out the door. But yeah, I'm a disabled veteran. I live at the Grand Rapids Home for Veterans. And frankly, things here they have been fudded up beyond to the highest level of being fudded up. And if you don't know what that is, it's kind of a polite way of saying the place, it's a snafu. It's situation normal. All fucked up. With my damn phone. I can't even get that damn thing to work. Turn it on. I try to swipe with my finger. Doesn't do shit. It's ridiculous. And I would just love to have a freaking phone that I could access by voice. I had a computer. I tried to use the Star Trek Omnipedia disc on it. It says is unsupported. It wouldn't do it. Bloody hell. Oh, man. Every time we turn around here, figuratively speaking, we hear that somebody else, a member or usually it's a staff member who's tested positive. They claim that this is we are locked down. We're not locked down. They don't understand the concept of lockdown. Lockdown means that nothing goes in and nothing comes out. No, nor people, not goods, nothing. Oh man. Oh yeah, you know, nobody knows that Joe Biden claims that things he claims Donald Trump has done. He says that's just not who we are. Well, Joe Biden doesn't know anything about who we are. He has no idea what has happened in this nation on this continent before he was born. The man's 78 years old this year, sometime. So 78 from 2020. That's 20. That would make him born in 20 from 78. That's 58. 58, 2001. Or 58. Yep. 58 in 2000. And then another, say 58 from that. And that's, he was born in like 1942. Or was it 41? So 41. Born in 41. I think 41 or 42. So prior to 41 or 42, he has no concept of what happened on this continent. So, okay, drop a little knowledge on you. After Pearl Harbor, they put a lot of Japanese people into internment camps. Now, the end of the 20th century there, they started claiming that was wrong, that it was tantamount to what the Nazis, the National Socialists, had done to the Jews. I say no. So they rounded up the Japanese because it had been the Japanese who had attacked Pearl Harbor. They didn't do it with the Germans or the Italians because they hadn't attacked us. Japanese did. And they didn't know who could be trusted. They didn't have the ability to investigate all of these Japanese citizens. So they did what they could do to deal with the situation at the time. Then they give them money as reparations. I think that was wrong. Well, I don't know if it was wrong or if it was right. I don't think it was wrong, but I don't know. You got nuts. Okay. Hey, what else? Oh yeah. Uh, Prior to 1942, oh, in 1935, you've got FDR standing moot on while MacArthur, as chief of staff, military chief of staff, or the chief of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, I guess. He's excuse me. He issues 1935. FDR allows MacArthur to send troops against World War I veterans who are demanding, were insisting that they be paid for these bonuses that they were promised for serving in World War I. And the government claims that they weren't due to be paid until 1945. Why would they have to wait until the end of another war to be paid a bonus that they were promised for serving in a previous war? It's weird. They served, the World War I was over by 1919. So why did they have to wait 16 or 17 years? Or why would they have to wait 26 or maybe 27 years for a bonus to be paid to them? Why couldn't it have been paid? I mean, so sure, we were starting like in the middle of a depression. But if the government had money to be doing all of these, starting all these projects, the government damn well had the money to pay them their bonuses, but they didn't. MacArthur sent the army after these veterans to disperse them. Then Roosevelt, trying to divert attention from it, he creates these jobs to give these World War I veterans, sends them to Florida to do construction down there. They take control of a train that would go down there that would be to go to Florida, but it was so incompetently run that it would eventually end up killing people instead of saving them, because it would be wiped out by the hurricane of 1938. First a hurricane of 35, and then another hurricane of 38. 35 hurricane would kill 250 some World War I veterans that Roosevelt had sent down to Florida to build something. Did them a lot of good, didn't he? Roosevelt, also MacArthur, would issue an order to murder in wholesale fashion cavalry mounts that he deemed no longer necessary because a new war was coming and it would depend on mechanized infantry, meaning tanks, and they wouldn't be able to use horses. So he decided to have them killed. It's a movie titled In Pursuit of Honor. It's based on a true story about a cavalry troop that rebelled against the order and took hundreds of horses north up and crossed the border into Canada. It's a good movie. You should see it. And in the movie, they were eventually pardoned by Roosevelt. So, okay, he did that, but still it was to divert attention from the firing on the World War I veterans. Now, many times we need to change our government. Not the president, not this time. President Trump has done everything he said he would do. He got us a new trade agreement with Canada and Mexico. Got rid of that disastrous NAFTA. Brought jobs back here. They claim his tax cut gutted or blew up our deficit. He say he wants to gut Social Security. He can't do that. Because if they do away with Social Security, then they are going to kill millions of Americans who depend on Social Security. Donald Trump's not going to do that. They don't tell us that they don't talk about how he has done the one thing he said he would do. He said he would not take a penny in pay. He hasn't. Every penny of that $400,000 that was that he gets paid, he has donated back to the people that need it. Veterans Administration, like I guess unions. There are other places that he has donated it to. You should look on whatever website it is to find out. But he did. He sent it the first year. He sent it to four or six different groups, giving it out to donating it to them each year. So out of his 4 years, he has gotten $1.6 million. Now, if you compare that to what George Washington got when he was in office, Donald Trump should be getting F again as much. He should be getting $600,000 each year. George Washington's pay when he took office was $25,000 a year. That would be the equivalent of $600,000 a year for a president. So if the president was getting $600,000 each year, 4 years you would have gotten 2.4 million. For 8 years it'll be 4.8 million. And anyone who doesn't know it, when you're in the White House, the anything that you do beyond what is required for the office, the food that if you're married and have kids, the food that you and your wife and kids eat in the residence, you have to pay for that. You have to pay for the salary of the staff. You have to pay for your all your own expenses. You have to pay for your own food. That's what I've heard. And there's a lot of things that you have to pay for as president, in for your own personal expenses. So that's things that we don't know. I do know that Congress likes to stick its nose into what the president can do. That's ridiculous. Congress needs to get its own house in order before it starts sticking its nose into what the president can do. Okay. Well, I had to go eat, so. For now, folks, I'm just going to say that I hope all Americans make the right choice and vote for Donald Trump. He has done everything he said he would do, trying to get the border secured, and that he has been fought on. Congress has fought him on that every step of the way. This new round of stimulus, they wanted they put out 2.2 trillion, and supposedly that was stomped on. Then when he came back with 1.8, they stomped on that. So, it's redunculous. If it's not going to be 2. If he steps on him for 2.2, then they step on him for 1.8. How about you go in the middle and do a $2 trillion stimulus, or just do the same stimulus they had before? They need to get on it. They need to eliminate this practice of allowing those who stop allowing service workers to be paid less because they get tips. A tip is not pay, it's a gratuity. If you work in a restaurant and you get A tip, that's a gratuity. You're not being, the tip is not, it's based on how good your service was. They aren't paying you to serve them. They're showing you their gratitude for how good your service was. The restaurant is paying you to serve the people, serve their customers. So the restaurant or whatever the business is, they need to pay their servers an appropriate wage and stop basing it according to what they get for tips. If you work in a restaurant where you get tips, whatever the minimum wage is, that is what you should be getting. If you get more, say you get, maybe you get $10 an hour. Maybe it's, say it's $10 an hour pay. That's the pay. And you get, in one night, you might get $10 or $20 in tips. They should not average out your tips. On an 8-hour shift, they shouldn't take that $20 or $25, maybe it's $25, and average it out according to how much they think you got per hour, and then deduct that much from your hourly pay. No, it should be in addition to it, because that $20 or $25 is not pay, it's a gratuity. They are thanking that person for serving them and showing them how good they felt the person's service was, or how good that person was at their job. Now, that's what I think. And that would give these service workers a better leg up. They need to be paid a minimum wage that is more in tune with reality. We all need to be paid what is in tune with reality. Would I like to see Social Security be increased? Yes, I would. I live in a nursing home, Grand Rapids Home for Veterans. I receive $775 each month. The cost of care here, since where I live is at a I receive skilled nursing care. That cost of care is now $5,105.13. That is going to go up next year, starting in January, to $5,200 and something. So as of now, I am $250-some thousand in arrears, at least according to the statement they sent me. When I moved in, the state was running the place. By the time they left, I was 300 and they said I was around 300,000 some dollars in arrears. That means that's how much money was left owing mine left that hadn't been paid. My Social Security paid some of it. I get $100 plus 25 for medical escrow. But the Medicare, Medicaid paid some, but that other 300,000 was what was left over, what was left unpaid. That's pathetic. And Congress went for 9 years without giving us a cost of living in allowance increase. And then it's only like 1 or 2% each year. It should be more than that because prices go up. Shoot. 1970, a car cost, that was fully loaded, $5,250 for a 1970 Olds 98 LS, 19 feet long, about 9 feet wide. That was 3 full-sized adults. 455 cubic inch engine, 4-barrel carburetor, 25-gallon gas tank, had 15-inch wheels. Cost $5,250, 1970. You know how much a car in 1930 that cost $600 would have been in 2000, and this money? $30,000. Yeah, that shows you what the inflation is. When cars came out in the early 20th century from Henry Ford, they cost it's like $600 or $800. That was the equivalent of $30,000 in the later 20th century. Yeah, 30 grand. Or maybe it was $30,000 today. Anyway, shows you how bad our inflation is. Let's sign off. As for Joe Biden, again, let me say, if you can't get a $15,000 credit buying a home now, what makes you think that Joe Biden is going to be able to give you that for buying a home if he is elected? If you don't get $7,000 credit or $7,000 for either credit or as help towards child care, why would you get it when Joe Biden is elected? If you're not getting if your income as an hourly worker hasn't gone up by that $15,000 he's talking about now, why would it go up when he gets elected? If you haven't gotten $1,300 increase in your Social Security now, why would you get it when Joe Biden gets elected? If you haven't gotten, if prescription prices haven't gone down now, why would they go down just because Joe Biden gets elected? Answer those questions. Joe Biden is blowing smoke up your ass. Think about it, people. Just because the Communist News Network, known as CNN, the Criminal News Network, also known as CNN, says it, just because the Democrats say it, just because Joe Biden says it, does not mean it is the truth. It is so far from the truth, it couldn't even see the truth with the Hubble telescope. Now that's saying something. America needs to use its brains, use its head for something other than a hat rack. You need to use your brains for something other than to keep your skull from caving in under the weight of your hair. Jeez. Come on. We claim to be smart. We claim to have intelligent people. How about we prove it and re-elect Donald Trump for 4 more years so he can get the border secured, and you can ask him to end this dumbass drug war and to get marijuana off Schedule 1 and ask him to initiate some honest to God scientific study into which drugs should be on Schedule 1 and which ones should be taken off. The federal government is not doing any investigation into drugs. They claim that they have no scientific, there's no scientific evidence that they are in any way therapeutic, and yet people have found get relief medically from a lot of the ailments that they suffer under from marijuana. If they can use cocaine in moderation, granted, it's addictive, but if it can be used, and I say if it can be used to alleviate the pain of some of these ailments, then so be it. It should be examined and determined how to proceed, if it can be done at all. And the same with these other drugs. They need to be examined. As for the Second Amendment, the government needs to get its damn hands off our guns. You talk about the Civil War being a rebellion. The Civil War was not a rebellion. The southern states, starting with South Carolina, seceded from the Union legitimately. They declared secession. Their people voted for secession. It was adopted. It was declared, and they did. The Union and the northern states then ganged up on them when Lincoln went after them, raising an army of 75,000 volunteers and declaring war on them, that there was to put down a rebellion. Then the other states seceded to help in response. It was not they did not secede en masse. It was only after Lincoln went after South Carolina and declared it being a rebellion, and that he was, and then lied, saying that it was a war to preserve the Union and to end slavery. It was neither. The South could have seceded from the Union, and the Union would have survived because it had all of the states that were the northern states, which had stayed in the Union, as well as the territories, as well as the rest of the continent, they had not yet been carved up into states, the territories. And in 1864, Lincoln lied again and badgered Congress to admit Nevada as a state so he could get the electors for Nevada. He was afraid he would lose the election. So he badgered Congress to let Nevada in as a free state because he thought it would go to the Confederacy. It had no chance of doing either. It was a territory. It couldn't join the Confederacy. It couldn't join the Union because it was not yet a state because it did not have the required population. Its population was 39,600. The required population for statehood was 60,000. It was short of 2/3 of that. But he forced Congress to admit it as a state. And as such, it was admitted as a free state. And he got the electors and was able to grab the 1864 presidential election. So he got that and then was executed a month after, or not even a month, but a couple weeks after he was inaugurated. Kind of like William Henry Harrison in 1841. William Henry Harrison was elected in 1840. And within a month after being inaugurated, he was dead. He was inaugurated at the end of, I think it was March 20th. It was the beginning or toward the end of March. And about the middle of April, he was dead. So too with Lincoln. Inaugurated in March, middle of April, he was dead. Oh, and his Emancipation Proclamation was an unlawful document. He had no authority to free those slaves because those states had left the Union. They say they had unlawfully left the Union. No, there's no unlawful about it. They voluntarily entered the Union and they voluntarily, willfully left the Union. So he violated, he issued an document he had absolutely no authority to issue. Further, after the war, he took a lot of property from those in the South, claiming that they owed property taxes because they had never been legally out of the Union. Also, that's unlawful. That's wrong. Let's see. Well, again, yep. So I am hoping that, in closing, again, I'm hoping that Donald Trump wins re-election. Otherwise, this nation is well and thoroughly fucked. Joe Biden is an idiot, and he is not going to do a good job as president. He had more authority as in the Senate, to do what he is claiming he can do now than he will as president. And he knows that. So re-elect Donald Trump. Otherwise, you can wave bye-bye to all of the wave bye-bye to these jobs as they go overseas to other nations, and watch as, they're claiming that it'll be the end of November before they get a vaccine. Well, I say to that, I've seen this movie before. Think the 1980 election. James Carter and Ronald Reagan. When Jimmy Carter was president in 1980 election, he was president. Iran militants seized the American embassy. Then comes 1980 and the presidential election, and he's working a whole year to free those hostages. He tried sent troops in to try and free them, but that was that went foobar when a freak sandstorm came up and took down a chopper and 8 service members. After that, they couldn't get another one going. That was the start of the Navy SEALs. After that, he tried every diplomatic avenue possible. Couldn't do it. It wasn't until after Ronald Reagan was elected, but it was just shy of before he was to be inaugurated, that the militants freed the hostages. And everyone claimed, it was because Ronald Reagan had been elected, and it was because those militants were afraid of what Ronald Reagan would do if they didn't release them. That was bull. Ronald Reagan wouldn't have done anything other than what he wouldn't have done anything more than what uh, Jimmy Carter had done. He would have done everything diplomatically possible. But yet Ronald Reagan, got credit for freeing the hostages. I have a feeling, and it sickens me, that if Joe Biden gets elected, these so-called scientists in these drug companies will suddenly announce that they have a vaccine and that it won't be credited to Donald Trump. It will be credited to Joe Biden, and they will make the claim that it was because of him, just like they did with the release of the hostages, that it was because of Ronald Reagan and not James Stewart or James Carter. Sorry, my mistake. I meant to say Jimmy Carter. When if it hadn't been for that, I think Jimmy Carter might have gotten re-elected to a second term. But it is what it is. Or it was what it is what it was. Joe Biden is not going to do anything any of what he's claiming he'll do. Donald Trump did. Joe Biden will not. He had nearly 60 years in government to do all of the junk that he is now claiming that he will do if elected. He won't get control of the virus, because if that could happen, it would have already have happened. According to the Communist News Network, Donald Trump issued a executive order that he had signed back in July. He issued that in September to force the drug companies and pharmaceutical manufacturers to lower their prices. Yet no one's saying anything about that. He held off on it after signing it in July to give these pharmaceutical companies time to act on that, and they did nothing. So he issued it, and he spent about a soundbite on it, saying, it's talking about how bad it is and all that. But notice we haven't heard a word, anything about that, because they know it's going to happen. Anything else, they would have been all over it, but they didn't. Used 2 executive orders. They spend about a micron, about 5 seconds talking about it, and that was it. Never heard another word from them. They have no idea what the hell they're doing. So I'm going to go eat, and Maybe I'll find something else to talk about. So, okay, folks, I will catch you on the flip side. Yeah, keep your pedal to the metal and keep the rubber on the road. Yeah. Shiny side up or rubber side down. Adios for now.